A lot of people think that we can't control what's happening in the brain and that we're almost stuck in a way. So one of the things that neurofeedback can do is train your brain in a very similar way than you would train your body in the gym. And the longer you train it, the more you can then transfer that skill into real life.
Could you explain to us how can neurofeedback help?
The brain will communicate through neurons. The more you use those neural networks will get stronger. Neurofeedback is a way to train your brain for better focus, better calmness, and better emotion regulation.
Hi Sophie, welcome to the HumanWare Project.
Thank you so much, Méline, for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
I'm actually very excited about today's topic. What is neurofeedback?
Neurofeedback is a way to train your brain for better focus, better calmness, and better emotion regulation. I think about going to the gym for your brain in a way. So I always say that our brain is the CEO. So for your whole body to be working well, you need to take care of your brain, and it's almost like a rippling effect. So once your brain is fine, everything else, considering your whole lifestyle as well, will follow. So a lot of people think that we can't really control what's happening in the brain and that we're almost like stuck in a way of like being in the same habits, being in the same patterns. But actually with neurofeedback, or like, with a growth mindset in general, you are able to change what's happening in the brain. So one of the things that neurofeedback can do is actually train your brain in a very similar way than you would train your body in the gym, very like unconsciously, and then this way your brain is able to adapt to better brain states. So one of the things that we do is actually looking at your brain in different states. So first doing a brain map, so how is your brain when you don't do anything in a more relaxed and calm state? Will your brain show that you're more in a tiredness state or more burnout? Maybe you will show like some high anxiety and high stress levels. And then we do a very similar thing with eyes closed, so just kind of simulating sleep in a way, and then 2 stress interventions to really show like how is your brain when something stressful happens. And then based on this, we understand clearly how your brain reacts in different situations and can create a protocol to then do that brain training to then increase your brain levels.
What is the approach of neurofeedback is different from the traditional psychotherapist?
With psychotherapy and positive thinking, it's very subjective how you feel. Like you might feel better after, let's say, 2 or 3 months of working with your therapist, but with the neurofeedback, we can actually show you data. So you get different scores and you can see the improvement in scores. So it's very based on data-driven approach, and what we also then train is your subconscious. So basically you get positive feedback whenever your brain is entering a better state. So coming back again to this high anxiety levels, whenever you back to a calmer state, your brain will actually learn, okay, this is my new go-to state, and the longer you train it, the more you can then transfer that skill into real life. And one of the things that's beautiful as well is that a lot of the times we have unconscious thinking, we think about the same stuff, we ruminate, and we may not necessarily realize. So when you actually train the neurofeedback and when you see that your levels are suboptimal, let's say that, again, you're watching a film, and then whenever the opacity is working and the sound is working, you're going to a better baseline. And whenever you can't see anything and the volume goes down, you're back to your suboptimal baselines. That can tell us when you're actually starting to ruminate, you are not able to see and hear well. It shows you the things you're thinking about and to gain more self-awareness through that data approach.
Basically what you're telling us is actually we have a way to look inside what happened to our brain, and at the same time, just like how we trained in the gym for our muscle, we can train the muscle in our brain.
Exactly.
That's actually what I really love about technology. Before, we only have the traditional method to feel better in different therapy, but now with the help of the technology, we can actually monitor of what really happened, and then to have a baseline to see if it's work or not.
Yes, so a lot of people have different neurofeedback devices. Neurofeedback is a very broad term. You can use neurofeedback with the EEG, so this is something that we will be doing using a saline cup. So this is with salt water and sponge electrodes, but you can also train neurofeedback with an fMRI machine. So you have very different ways. And again, if we think about neurofeedback, there's different modalities that you can use. You can use it based on Z-scores, so looking at the average brain and then your brain compared to the average brain, or you can look at the relative power. So this is something that I'm using to really see how much percentage is active in that specific brainwave in that specific moment. What we can do is, based on the different brain maps, we see what's going on in your brain and the different parts that would need, let's say, improvements. And then based on this, you get success rates on those scores. So let's say again that, for instance, your brain is highly anxious and it's someone working all the time and can't switch off, their sleep is disrupted, the digestion in the system is not great because of those high stress levels. What we can do is then decrease the stress level. So whenever you get 80% of success rate to decrease the stress levels, you get a positive feedback. So in a way, it's very monitored what's happening behind the scenes, and we're training your brain to be enhanced.
Think about those high functional CEOs. If they do a brain training to tune this kind of stress down, will that also tune down their productivity?
I love that question, because a lot of the times we associate those productive moments with like being in high stress and like working all the time, but actually for you to be in a calmer state, you can make better decisions. So one of the things I always like taking as example, let's say that you want to invest 10 million, you want to be in a calm and steady brain state. So let's say that you're being very highly reactive, so your high beta will be up, your decisions to invest those 10 millions will be suboptimal. So for you to actually make the best decision possible with that 10 million or other decisions that you're doing in your work life, you want to be in a calmer state, so more calm and focused, so your prefrontal cortex area, which is the side of the brain, so the rational thinking, will be active and you can make the most rational choice for you in that moment instead of being reactive and then the frontal cortex just to shut down.
Damn.
And one of the things I also really appreciate with the brain training, that it also helps you to not only calm down and relax, but you're able to understand that downtime is also really important and can be really productive for your work to actually be even more productive. Because actually during those calm times, your brain is able to process what's been happening throughout the day and different parts, and you're able to actually then connect the dots and get ideas. So if you're just working, you might not necessarily be able to see patterns, but if you have this downtime and like doing something else, you're actually able to recover faster and making better decisions also in the long run.
And compare with those wellness training, if it's meditation or yoga or breath work, what are the difference with the brain training in the EEG way?
Mindfulness and meditation is a very broad term. So a lot of people think that you have to sit down and just try to meditate, force yourself, but sometimes it might not be the right way for you. So other things that you can do to achieve that same state is what we call the flow state, is to either do the neurofeedback, which can help you based on your specific brain and the feedback that you're getting to then enter that state. But there's also different ways that you can do it. For instance, someone who likes painting might be in that flow state after, let's say, 20-30 minutes and being really engrossed in that activity and being able to just like surrender with what's happening. I know for myself, I get it also at the gym when I'm just doing some high intensity workouts. That's also a way that I'm personally able to achieve those states, but it's very personal to everyone. There's no one size fits all of that person needs to do X, Y, and Z to achieve those states, because I feel like it's something that we need to do long term as well for us to be also really happy and to be fulfilled in life. So if you force yourself to sit down for 20 minutes, or let's say maybe like 2 hours a day and meditate and you hate it, you're not going to be consistent. So it's really seeing what are those patterns that you can actually have long term and see what fits, so like trial and error more.
That makes sense. And when we see our brain state in a whole picture, when we work or when we in flow or when we relax, what are the different brain, if we map it, we will observe in a sense? So
flow state is usually related to alpha brainwave activity and low beta. So it's a way for you to be really focused and calm and relaxed at the same time, and that's how you can enter, in a way, your work state the most productive, because you're just like really in there without thinking about other things. So that's one of the ways that the brain can be really relaxed, and that's then doing eyes open condition when we have our eyes closed. So then one of the most important senses that we have, which are the eyes and take a big part of the brain, is not active. We're actually able then to introspect. So in a way, what's happening is that we're going from this more or less faster brainwork activity, so alpha 2, to a slower one, which is alpha 1 and theta activity. which helps us then to introspect. So you still get this calmness in you and having this this calm sense, but you're just going to a slow activity because the eyes are closed.
So basically you're saying we can deal with our everyday work, but way more slower brain waves in a sense to being in control with everything.
Yes, so alpha 2, not too slow, because if you're too slow then you're more tired, but like kind of that sweet spot.
What if flow state feels like, or how do I check if I'm in the right mindset, and if I'm not, how am I able to snap out of it and to go to the good mindset?
Yes, very good question. So flow state, it's in a way for you to just be really present and not to think about anything else. So you're just really engrossed and you can like just work through it without like being highly stressed. So one of the things that you then can do to like go back into that state is like some of the breath work. So one of the most quickest way to go into a more relaxed state, so a parasympathetic nervous system, is to do like the deep breath. And this is a way that you can then calm your brain quite quickly. Like especially, let's say that you're in a work meeting and that you being highly stressed and like on the spot and someone's asking you very important questions, you may be able then to do that and calm yourself in a quick way without people realizing what's going on.
That's when you say that very on the spot reacting stage, I really feel that not only for the people who are in the decision making seat, even the people they need to deliver the task in a company, to break out of that state sometimes can be really difficult. And what I find is very dangerous is when your brain gets used to that pattern, like you just jump into that pattern. Could you explain to us how can neurofeedback help?
It's very interesting because, as you said, like we do so many things just unconsciously on repeat, and then we're like, why am I doing this thing again? Without you having to think about it. But if we think about how the brain works, the brain will communicate through neurons. So it's like different neural networks, and the more you use those neural networks, let's say going to the coffee machine and you repeat it, those neural networks will get stronger, and this is then something that you can automatically do. So what we can then do with the neurofeedback is to actually make those connections less strong and to create new neural connections. So again, you need a holistic approach, so like the neurofeedback can help you to then create new habits and new states, and how to access better states of your brain. But you also then need to see what's happening consciously in your world and stop first. This is like, let's say the coffee machine, that it's something that it's happening. You can then stop and see, okay, what can I do instead? I don't know, maybe like taking a glass of water or doing 10 squats on the spot, instead of going towards that coffee machine. But the neurofeedback can help you then to create new neural patterns by then training your brain through going to better brain states.
And with the neurofeedback, how many sessions I will need to take if that's something I want to work on to really get awareness in my day-to-day life?
So neurofeedback, I always say that you do at least 10 training sessions, because the brain will take some time to rewire itself. It's very, very similar to the gym. If you go once, you can't have a six-pack, but you need to be consistent and actually doing it over at least 10 sessions, and actually ideally then over a more longer period of time, a few months, etc., to really see those changes, because the brain will take some time to actually process those new pathways and to create better ones. You will not automatically wake up and not wanting to drink the coffee, but one of the things that you can then really learn is how to pause yourself. So one of the things that neurofeedback also does is to enhance neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to actually change and to become to better brain levels in a way.
What kind of daily behavioral pattern is actually good for training your brain to getting this kind of control or awareness?
One is actually learn what is the best activity for you to go into that flow state. Is it meditation? Is it going on a run? Is it painting? What are those specific things for you to be able to access it? Because once you're in that flow state, you are really able to to be present in the moment and to really disregard everything kind of else that is going on. The other one is actually taking some quiet times. So there's a lot of noise always happening around you, like people giving you different opinions. We live in London, which is a super busy city, and there's always something else going on. But actually for you to take the time to just have silent moments, whether it's an hour a day or maybe like, you know, just 10 minutes, depending on how much time you have, you will actually get a lot of insights into what's happening in you internally. There's a lot of cues that we don't necessarily listen to our body, and it's really with those silent moments that you're able to tune in and to be better at that skill, and then enhancing it for you to actually see what is something that you truly want, and instead of what is the outside world suggesting.
How does people find you, right? Because this is a very niche area that people are looking into changing their behavior through training their brain. And what are the clients' outcome after working with you?
Yeah, so I'm working with quite a few hotels. I worked with Kamalaya to create the brain program that I just launched, and the 4 seasons and different ones across the globe. So kind of in different locations at the same time. So it's people who are in influential positions, so like CEOs, entrepreneurs, investors, high net worth individuals who want to have an edge on how to actually train the brain to be better at work, to be more productive, but also to be more calm and lessen out the anxiety. So one of the things I'm also really passionate about is cognitive performance and to reduce cognitive decline. So when we get older, it's normal that our brain decays and that we lose certain neural pathways, and just the brain itself just, you know, is not as strong, let's say, than being in our 20s. But one of the things is that you can do is actually train your brain and challenge it in different ways for you to actually be able to perform longer and better over the lifespan that you have. Obviously also combined with like the community that you have around you. So that's one of the things that I feel like is very important, to surround yourself by like-minded people and having a strong sense of the people that can support you for like longevity and health span purposes.
I really believe proximity is the power. Like who you hang out with are really going to influence how you behave yourself.
Yeah.
And what are the typical outcomes those people achieve after they train, let's say 10 to 20 sessions with neurofeedback?
Yeah. So they're definitely a lot more calm and less reactive. So one of the things I hear a lot is that people then think about the levitating monk when something stressful happens at work, and they're able to then rethink about that specific situation that we then trained together, and they're able then to access those states. So when something stressful happens, they're like, okay, I know this feeling that I got into the brain training, how my brain can feel like to be more calm and relaxed, and then that's something that they can take to their everyday life. But it's also when we're thinking about those calmness and anxiety and stress levels, once they're calmer, a lot of people also see that their sleep is better. So that's definitely a correlation that is quite strong.
And are those changing lasting change, or
yeah,
it's good for a certain period of time?
So for lasting changes, you still need to be consistent. So very similar to the gym. If you want those muscles to be strong and stay strong, you would need to go to the gym on a regular basis. So one of the things that neurofeedback can do is help you get into those states, and then you can do different activities to access those slow states to actually then continue in the long run if you don't want to always do the neurofeedback.
Is there anything they can do at home without the contact, or they can buy some home, like the kind of product they can do at home, or is there any exercise people can do free of charge, basically?
So there are consumer devices out there. I still will have to test multiples to tell you what the best one is, but I would definitely recommend for someone who wants to have a home device to be mindful about where the electrodes are placed in the device. So if you have one in the frontal cortex, midbrain, and then back of the brain would be ideal. So having multiples and not just at the front, that can help you to train your brain better and to get accurate data as well. At home, I would actually suggest meditation. So for me, mantra meditation is something I really enjoy doing. Someone called Boho Beautiful on YouTube has those amazing calmness meditations, a very soothing voice, and a nature background. So one of the things that I always would say as well is, if you're able to ground yourself in nature, maybe meditate in nature, or just be by yourself in silence, or journal, that'll be a great way to also be able to access those states.
If someone is stuck in a really not helpful thought, what will be the best way to snap out of it?
It's a tricky one, because there's different things you can do. I can't give you the script because it will be different for everyone. But if we think about movement, your brain kind of snaps out of it and will actually help you to get into a different mindset. So I would always recommend movement first, either being in nature, going for a run, or maybe doing a workout class, or just going for a walk around your block. That's something where you're able then to snap out of it. But if we're thinking about long-term rumination and how to change thoughts long-term, I think it's a combination of things. So obviously movement is incredibly important, but then also the nutrition that you're having. So what do you put in your body? One of the things I'm doing with my PhD is looking at sugar addiction and food addiction. And one of the things that sugar does, or high processed food, is I've noticed it myself when I have too much sweet stuff or that kind of stuff, I just get very anxious and very much brain fog, etc. So if you're actually able to go into more a whole food diet, you're able to change also your brain state. There's been a lot of books that also have shown that a whole food diet can change not only your body itself and heal it, but also has positive effects on the brain, like better cognition, better focus, being more calm and relaxed in a way.
That's actually a very big part we want to cover today, about sugar addiction and what it do to your brain if you have a lot of sugar, and how you can get rid of the sugar addiction in a really good way.
It's an interesting topic because a lot of people talk about it in everyday life, but if we think about academia, there's not that much research actually on sugar addiction, and it's a very controversial topic where some people believe sugar addiction is a thing and some other people believe it's not. So there's no clear definition of what sugar addiction is. It can be either the sweet taste, it can be the sugar itself, but it can be also maybe the combination of sugar, fat and salt, and that's what I believe makes it so addictive, is that combination of sugar, fat and salt, and that three approach in a way. What's happening then in the brain is that the dopamine levels will be completely hijacked. So when we think about chronic long-term sugar intake, the memory center will also be affected, and a lot of neuroinflammation will actually happen, and a lot of again, when we think about brain fog, anxiety will just increase in a way. What's something to be mindful of is that most of the research has been done on animals and not much has been done on humans. There is some correlations, but you can't say that everything that's happening on an animal will be automatically also true on humans. But one of the things that I'm very passionate about is meditation, mindfulness, how can we actually use it to decrease sugar levels. So when we think about addiction in general, there's very similar components and traits in different kinds of addictions. So if we think about substance use disorder, meditation and mindfulness have been shown as successful treatment methods to actually reduce cravings. Usually it's an 8-week period where people go 2 to 3 times a week to a psychotherapist, and they do group settings where they learn about mindfulness, meditation, and then also have homework with journaling, etc. And my big thing is how can we actually make it for sugar addiction? So one of the things that I developed is a virtual reality intervention where people meditate in Japan, so Japan, nature, etc., to reduce cravings. So they actually do a body scan to be more mindful of what's happening in the body, and that's putting them in the present moment instead of thinking about that sugar and going after those thoughts. I'm still looking at data analysis, so I can't give you the big results, but there's a big correlation between different kinds of addictions and how mindfulness is useful.
And what are the harm to our brain if we eating sugar as a habit in the long run?
One of the things that happens is that neuroinflammation occurs. So the brain will be inflamed and the memory system will be affected, stress levels will be increased, and the dopamine system will be completely hijacked. So we need to actually then relearn how to, if we think about dopamine, we get different peaks of dopamine depending on the activity that we have. So when we, for instance, take taking drugs, for instance, you will have a huge peak of dopamine, and this will be also equivalent to a huge drop of dopamine. The longer you do it, the more you will actually need to engage in that activity, so to get a bigger peak of dopamine to actually feel good. But that also means that the higher the peak, the higher the draft. So it will take longer period of time for the dopamine levels to be back at the baseline level, so you will feel bad over a longer period of time. And it's this like repetitive cycle where you then like gravitate towards the sugar to feel good, but then you feel bad, so then you go towards the sugar again, and it's just like that loop that you repeat.
So how does the dopamine works in our brain, and can we sustain a very high dopamine just by naturally and without crushing it?
Yes, so dopamine is very interesting because we always have a certain baseline, and we will experience certain peaks of dopamine depending on the activity that we do. So taking drugs, for instance, you will experience a huge peak of dopamine, but then also a huge crash. So if you think about how dopamine works, it's very proportional. Can you say that's proportional? So the higher the peak, the lower the draft. So the peak will make you feel like, oh, this is amazing, I love this. And then the draft makes you obviously feel a bit bad and you need to recover. And then dopamine will need some time to replenish and to go back into that baseline. So if we think about sugar, for instance, you will need more and more sugar to actually feel that feel-good effect, so like for the peak to occur. But then if we think about it, you will have a huge draft as well, and it will need some time for you to feel good again. So then the trap is that you're going towards the sugar again, and you're in that repetitive cycle. So one of the things that we can think about is how can we achieve those states naturally. So one of the things is cold plunging, for instance, where we get this peak of dopamine, but instead of crashing, you can actually sustain it for a longer period of time. So like usually between 3 to 5 hours, you can achieve those feel good levels, your brain is clear, your mind is clear, without having that huge draft.
Wow, when you say that, it's crazy. I just think about, okay, maybe your addiction is not a sugar, it's not a coffee, it's not a drug, it could be work. How can we ever feel in that enough stage for a little bit longer?
It's interesting because when we think about dopamine, it's a molecule of pursuit. So it's not only about you feeling good, but also pursuing something that is outside of yourself. So let's think about the workplace, and you have a specific goal that you want to achieve. You will need some dopamine to actually get there. And a lot of the time, we actually focus on the outcome of like, okay, this is the goal that I have. I'm going to feel amazing after reaching it. And sometimes it's not the case. And that's then about like reshaping the question and reshaping the experience in a way to actually try to enjoy the process and not to put all the emphasis on the goal. Because that's a lot of athletes who experience this as well. They win a gold medal.
And then what's next, right?
Yes, you get like, oh my God, I won it, I'm amazing. I done the Olympics. And then they will actually feel depressed afterwards. People feel it also after the wedding sometimes. You are so excited about this day, and then it's like, okay, what next? And you kind of, the dopamine kind of fades, and you're thinking about what else to do. So it's also about what purpose do you have in life, and how can you then tie it with the work that you have to actually sustain those happy levels in a way.
If that is a very high and peak, high and low kind of brain stage, is there any brain stage that they are still doing a lot of things, but it seems like they don't get dragged along with their emotions? What kind of brain scan they will show, and what type of brain stage they are in, what kind of chemistry they are producing at that moment?
I think they would definitely be in a much longer flow state than we are. I've worked in Asia for a bit, like in Thailand and in Maldives, and I was able to see different cultures also through traveling, Japan, Vietnam, and it's what I really appreciated it is that they have this big focus on community and those holistic approaches, and they really understood something that we maybe in Europe or in the US don't necessarily understand, where we have a big focus of chasing the next thing, and I feel like in Asia you have this sense of the community and being more at peace, and that's something that was really beautiful to see. So I think coming back then to the monks, I've not scanned any monk's brain, so I can't give you the exact data, and I would need to look more into the literature, but they I would presume they show definitely clearer states of flow state. And that's something that you then also see in meditation studies, is that once you actually then meditate and go into those states, you're able to just be more calm and relaxed over a longer period of times instead of chasing the next thing and being more reactive.
Can we really be the owner and be the CEO of our brain and then to influence it?
I am of the firm belief, yes, that we are definitely the CEO of our own body and of our own brain, and that if your brain is functioning well, then it will have a positive rippling effect on everything else that you do. So when we're thinking about the brain, a lot of chemical reactions are happening at the same time. A lot of things are actually really unconscious. And even though we have done a lot of research in neuroscience and psychology, there's still like a lot of things that we don't necessarily understand how the brain works. But combined with technology that you can use to enhance your brain, as well as the mindset that you have and the thoughts that you put into your brain, you are definitely able to change.
Let's bring back a little bit about you, and I would like to understand what makes you interested in the space and what's your background.
My background is in neuroscience and psychology, but before I dived into it, I was actually doing luxury marketing. And I really pivoted when I was experiencing panic attacks myself, which was not a fun time. And I really wanted to understand how the brain works. So I was reading a lot of books, and then I was like, okay, let me actually study it properly by doing a master's, and then continued with the PhD journey that I'm currently on to really understand what's going on. So I also had some families who struggled with their mental health, and seeing this growing up was also quite tough. And I really understood, like, you have to be well and to be okay for you to have a fulfilling and happy life. And that's one of the quests that I'm really on how to create this happiness and for people to be mentally well with the community aspect, and then obviously educating people in terms of what's happening in the brain and in the mind.
And what are the part of work you are most exciting about?
I'm really excited where the wellness space is heading, especially with hotels, because I feel like people really understand that the brain is so important. Brain health is something I'm really passionate about. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a neuroscientist, but I really do believe that a lot of people focus on the whole body, but forgot what's happening in the brain. So now the longevity aspect and the longevity space is shifting towards the brain, and I'm really excited to see how they're really integrating everything with the blue zones. We talked briefly about Miami as well before filming, Miami wanting to be the next blue zone, and to really see what are the different pillars that we can actually sustain a brain.
Even with many clinics I have tried, I see people changing over such a short amount of time, not only their health, but their whole mood and their mindset with the help of the technology and the treatment that you will think, oh my God, I can't believe you can treat your health and your brain in such a way. However, I feel it's not even new technology, but it just never got into a mass audience that people are able to have a direct access of. And that's really our channel's kind of goal and passion, to discover all those different treatments all around the world. And we try it, you see it, if you love it, go reach out and try it yourself.
This is one of the things I'm really passionate about in the longevity aspect, is the prevention aspect that you mentioned. Like, how can you actually prevent something really bad to happen? And what are the lifestyle changes that you can make, and what is the technology that can actually help you to sustain it? So one of the things I love talking about is preventative burnout or preventing cognitive decline. So that's something I'm very passionate to also look deep into it.
I'm a night owl still. I'm still working on it. The problem is, before I sleep, I will work or writing my articles, and then when I sleep, very likely I'm very tired, but my brain is unable to tune down. Will the brain scan help me to understand what happened?
So one of the things we can actually maybe do as well is to do the neurofeedback before you go to sleep, and this will be able to for your brain to actually learn, okay, this is the sleeping state I need to go into before then actually going into sleep. And we'll be able to regulate it this way.
Thank you, Sophie, for your time today.
Thank you so much, Méline, for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for watching this new episode of the HumanWare Project. So that we can experiment and try new technology together, please like and subscribe. Your support means the world to us.